You know that feeling when you're standing over an engine bay at 11 at night and your hands are covered in grease, and for the first time all day, your brain just stops screaming at you? Yeah, that one. There's a reason for that, and it's not because you're weird or because you're avoiding your problems, even though your spouse might tell you otherwise when you disappear into the garage for the third night in a row over something as small as a squeaky belt. Here's the number that got me thinking about this whole thing in the first place. Researchers who study attention and mental health have found that repetitive, hands-on tasks can lower activity in the part of your brain responsible for rumination by almost the same amount as 20 minutes of meditation. Let that sit for a second. 20 minutes of meditation is something people pay for. They download apps for it, they go on retreats in the mountains and sit cross-legged for a weekend to get that effect. And here you are, getting the same mental reset from removing a serpentine belt in your driveway with a socket wrench and a beer going warm on the bumper.
That's not a coincidence. That's your nervous system doing exactly what it's designed to do when you give it a task with clear rules, a clear goal, and an immediate physical result. Think about what your day usually looks like. Emails that never really end, meetings where nobody actually decides anything, a boss who wants you to be a mind reader, a group chat that somehow always needs a response right this second. None of that has an edge to it. None of it finishes. You can answer 40 emails and there will be 40 more tomorrow. And that's the exhausting part. Not the work itself, but the fact that it never closes the loop.
A car does not work like that. A car has a problem, and the problem has a cause, and the cause has a fix. And when you find it and apply it, the car runs. It's binary. It's honest. It doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't need you to phrase your request more diplomatically. It doesn't ghost you for 2 days and then act like nothing happened. You turn the key, it either starts or it doesn't. And that kind of brutal simplicity is exactly what a stressed out brain is starving for.
Psychologists have a term for this general category of experience. They call it flow, and you've probably heard that word thrown around so much it's lost its meaning. But let's actually break down what's happening biologically, because it explains everything about why grown adults, who could be doing literally anything else with their Saturday, choose to lay on a cold concrete floor working on brake lines. When you're deep in a task that's challenging but not impossible, something interesting happens in your prefrontal cortex, which is basically the part of your brain responsible for self-monitoring, second-guessing, anxiety, and that voice that replays your awkward conversation from 2014 at 3 in the morning. During flow states, activity in that region actually decreases. Scientists call it transient hypofrontality, which is a fancy way of saying your inner critic clocks out for a while. The part of you that's constantly judging, evaluating, worrying about what people think goes quiet, because your brain simply doesn't have enough bandwidth left over to run that program while it's also trying to figure out why the check engine light won't clear. That's the real reason working on cars feels like therapy to so many people. It's not really about the car. The car is just the excuse. The car is the object that gives your hands something to do, so your mind can finally shut off the tab that's been running in the background all day. And here's where it gets interesting, because this isn't just some feel-good story about a hobby. There's a psychological profile that shows up again and again in people drawn to this kind of work. And once you see it, you'll start noticing it in everyone, from your uncle to your coworker to maybe yourself. A lot of these folks are what you'd call high-responsibility people. Managers, parents, small business owners, people whose entire day is spent making decisions for other people, absorbing other people's problems, being the one everyone turns to when something breaks. And what happens when your whole identity becomes about solving other people's chaos is that you lose any space where the problem is simply yours, and only yours, and small enough that you can actually finish it. A car gives that back. Nobody's calling you in the middle of changing your oil asking for a status update. Nobody needs you to loop them in on the spark plug situation. It is just you and the machine, and a problem with an actual ending. And for people who spend their whole lives managing situations that never end, that ending is addictive in the healthiest possible way. There's also something to be said about control. Real, tangible, physical control, which is a thing most of us have less of than we like to admit. You can't control the economy. You can't control whether your job still exists in 6 months. You can't control your kid's mood or your partner's day
or whether the guy in the group chat is going to bring up politics again.
But you can control whether that bolt gets torqued to spec. You can control whether that gasket seats properly. In a world that constantly reminds you how little you actually run, an engine bay is one of the last places where cause and effect still makes sense, where your effort translates directly into a result you can see, hear, and feel in the driver's seat. That's not nothing. That is, honestly, kind of everything. Now, here's the part people don't expect. It's not really about fixing things at all. It's about being fully present with your body while your mind gets a break. And that combination is rarer than you think.
Most relaxation, the Netflix on the couch kind, still leaves your brain fully engaged, still scrolling, still half thinking about tomorrow. Working with your hands on something mechanical is different because it demands just enough of your attention that your brain can't wander off into anxiety spirals, but not so much that it becomes stressful in itself. It's the sweet spot. Too easy and your mind drifts back to your problems. Too hard and you get frustrated and stressed in a whole new way. But that middle zone, the zone where you're focused just enough,
That's where the magic happens. That's where cortisol actually drops, where your heart rate slows down, even though you're physically working. There's also a quieter piece of this that doesn't get talked about enough, and it's about grief and memory. So many people who work on cars learned it from someone, a dad, a grandfather, an uncle who's not around anymore. And every time they're under the hood, they're not just fixing an alternator. They're back in that driveway at 12 years old, handing someone a wrench and being told which one, being taught patience.
being taught that some things in life can actually be fixed if you're willing to get your hands dirty and figure it out. That garage becomes a place where time folds in on itself a little. It's not nostalgia, exactly. It's more like a return, a way of being close to someone, even when they're gone, because the smell of oil and the sound of a ratchet clicking can hold memory in a way conversations sometimes can't. And maybe that's part of why this hits different than other hobbies. Painting is nice. Reading is nice. But there's something about mechanical work that connects to an older, almost ancestral part of us. Humans have been fixing things with their hands for basically our entire existence as a species. Long before therapy, long before mindfulness apps, people were solving physical problems with physical tools and feeling better afterward, because that's how we're built. We're not actually wired to sit still and think our way out of stress. We're wired to move, to build, to fix, to use our hands and see a result. The modern world took that away from most of us and replaced it with screens and spreadsheets, and it's no wonder so many people feel unmoored. Working on a car isn't regression, it's recalibration. It's your nervous system remembering what it was actually built to do. So when you see someone spending their entire weekend replacing a water pump on a car that honestly isn't worth what they're putting into it, don't assume it's about the car. It rarely is. It's about having one corner of life where the problem is clear, where the solution is earnable, where nobody needs anything from you except your attention and your hands. And where, for a couple of hours, the noise in your head finally has somewhere quieter to go. Because, at the end of the day, it was never really about the engine. If this video helped you understand something about yourself or someone you love, consider buying me a coffee through the link in the description. It genuinely helps keep this channel going, and every bit of support means more than you know.